I have another XFX power supply to unbox. So this one is slightly different from the last XFX power supply that I took a look at. And in terms of the overall platform and the overall feature set, it is fairly similar. However, this is a higher wattage unit than the 80 Plus Platinum 1000 watt that we looked at before. So this is a 1250 watt power supply, which, yes, there are higher wattage power supplies out there, but I would say that for all practical intents and purposes, 1200 watts or 1250 watts or whatever you want to call it is pretty much as high-end as you need to go, because you can power almost anything I can imagine. I mean, okay, yeah, you can add Peltiers and things like that to your system that would make it consume more power. But with this, you can easily power 4 graphics cards, a quad-core, or rather, quad-cores aren't even high-end anymore, I forgot. A 6-core CPU, and, you know, all the extra little random peripherals and accessories that you could want. So the one that we had a look at before was the 1000 watt one, and that was more of a limited edition SKU, and hold on a second, hold on, just a moment. So the 1000 watt is the limited edition 80 Plus Platinum, and then the 1050 and the 1250 watt are the black edition, non-limited edition ones. So these are 80 Plus Gold, which is to be expected because 80 Plus Gold is a little bit easier to achieve, especially with a 1250 watt unit. I mean, look at what you'd be expecting from a 1250 watt 80 Plus Platinum unit. We're talking, what, 90% efficiency basically for 1250 watts. So what does it have in terms of the overall other features that are similar to the 80 Plus Platinum unit? The answer is a whole lot. It actually looks very similar, so XFX has done a great job. I mean, back when they first launched their power supplies, I was looking at it going, well, what can XFX do any different? And what they're doing is they're using a very high quality manufacturer for the power supply units themselves. And what they've also done is they've found a way to set apart their aesthetic from what others are doing. So you look at it and you go, well, really anything but black tends not to look that great. Like you go and you do like a, you know, like a bronzy colored power supply, and it might look kind of cool on its own, but you go and put that in a system, it looks kind of out of place. So I was like, okay, well, what are they going to do? And what they did do is they did kind of a unique overall look. So it's got a very XFX-y look to it. It's still black. They've done kind of silver accents, and rather than going the you know, cover it with gold colored stuff route that a lot of guys have done with their 80 Plus Gold power supplies. And when you combine good aesthetics with very high quality, I'd say you, generally speaking, end up with a winner. So that's what they've decided to do with their power supply products, and I have no hesitations whatsoever in recommending their power supply products. So they do, okay, I'm going to say it one more time. They do use a high-quality manufacturer, and then they do offer a 5-year guarantee. That's from XFX, so that's their legendary warranty service. So it's hard to go wrong that way as well. Let's have a look at the modular fan interface, where you're going to find a few different things. So you'll see your motherboard modular connector, so it's a fully modular power supply. You also see a CPU connector, so that uses an 8-pin to 8-pin, which I'm going to find right about here. Alright, so that guy plugs in right there. And then what you see is 3 more PCIe connectors, and then an additional PCIe or CPU connector. So that means you can either use this guy right here to do another 8-pin, although I would personally argue that unless you're using a dual socket motherboard, that is entirely unnecessary. So a single 8-pin, even if you're okay, by dual socket I mean dual CPU sockets, not dual 8-pin sockets. So I would argue if you have a single CPU, you're going to be more than enough served by a single 8-pin connector, even if your motherboard has 2 connector slots. So what that means is you could use this power supply to provide up to 8 PCIe connectors, so that is up to 4-way dual pin requiring graphics cards. So you can see each of these connectors, nice long cables, has dual 6+2 pin connectors at the end, and XFX includes 4 of them. So with the 1050 watt they include 3, and with the 1250 watt they include 4, and then they also include the CPU one, so you can actually use it whichever way you want. Because if you're running 2 or 3 graphics cards and you do have the dual 8-pin connectors on your motherboard, then I guess you might as well use them both. High quality power cord included, very, very thick, good to see. It's just those little touches that do make a difference. Oh, I want to talk about, you know what? I'll talk about that after. Okay, let's have a look at the rest of the included connectors. So you got your 24 pin, which is pretty much bog standard. I would hope that any PC power supply comes with a 24 pin connector. Do I have all of them here? Yeah, okay. So we've got a 3x SATA connector one. So 2 of them are right angle, 1 of them is straight. Then we've got a 2x SATA connector, 1 right angle, 1 straight. That's what I'd recommend running up to your optical drive. Then we have another 3x SATA power connector. And finally, another 3x SATA power connector. So that's 9 that you can run over to your hard drive bays, and then 2 that you can run up to your optical drives, which is a good balance. Okay, next we've got a dual Molex. I'm a big fan of this because I don't use many Molexes in my case, so I'd run that to my pump and I'd run that to my fan controller, and then I'd be pretty much done. Then we've got one of those Molex to dual floppy adapters, just in case you still use any floppy devices in your system, whether it's a card reader or whatever else. If they need floppy power, they need it. You got a triple Molex, and then you've got another triple Molex that is also included. Now this is cool. Check this out. I wonder if we can see the solid link interface down there. You know what? We can't see that, but we can see something. So I want you guys to check this out. You know how on most modular power supplies, you see a big bundle of cables coming off. Can you see inside? Sort of? I'm going to try and get an angle where you can see along the right-hand edge. So most modular power supplies, you'll see a whole bunch of cables that are soldered down there and then run over to the back of the PCB that makes up the modular interface, which is going to be right behind here. The way that these power supplies work in order to conserve efficiency is, rather than using those cables and those solder points, which tend to be somewhat inefficient, they use solid pieces. Actually, here, they have a good diagram here. Where is it? Aha! They use solid metal pieces to run right off the PCB onto the modular interface itself. So you can see what it looks like with this back piece taken off. So that does provide, I mean, we're talking very small amounts of increased efficiency, but you'd be amazed how much these things can add up over time. Like, I'm aware of at least one 80+ gold power supply where this was a less reputable manufacturer. This was not XFX, so don't take that away from this story. But what they did was, when they actually sent their unit away to the 80+ certification committee, they included cables that were 30% shorter, because just that extra little bit of resistance that they're taking away from the power output earned them an 80+ gold certification instead of 80+ silver. So that's something to bear in mind. If you're buying a power supply, you want to buy from someone reputable who doesn't sort of fudge the numbers in order to hit a particular plateau. That's actually one of the other things that XFX really feels is important. So their capacitors and their operating specs are based on a standard operating condition of 50 degrees, so they're not actually going to go ahead and put the power supply in a colder environment, which does help it perform more efficiently in order to achieve a better rating. They're putting it in a more realistic scenario, so they've got all Japanese capacitors, as well as testing them. Wow, cool. So they test them at 50 degrees, and they're rated to withstand up to 105 degrees. Automatic protection sensor, so you got all of your usual safety certifications. I would expect that from someone like XFX, as well as from the manufacturer that is building the power supply in the first place. Because, I mean, when it comes to actual manufacturing plants, someone like an XFX is going to stand behind the warranty for you. They're going to support the product for you. They're going to bring it to market for you. They're going to do, you know, promotions and MIRs and all that good stuff for you. But when it comes to an actual factory, not everyone owns a power supply factory, so they are using a very, very high quality OEM, arguably the best one out there. Hybrid fan mode. So we're finally on to what I think is really the best feature of this particular series of power supplies, their Black Edition full modular, and that is hybrid fan mode here. So when you enable that feature, what you're actually doing, and they include a useful graph right on the power supply itself. I will show you that graph when I find it. Aha, very cool. Check this out. So up to 20% load, plus or minus 5%, it operates in silent mode. That means your fan is off. Remember, 20% load on a 1250 watt power supply is about 300 watts. You'd be hard pressed to find a system that idles above 300 watts. In fact, let's take this system right here, which is dual GTX 580s and a 2600K, no, what is this? This is a 3930K 6-core processor. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys. This system idles at 144 watts. Check that out. Can you see that? It's okay. You'll have to take my word for it. It idles at 144 watts, 8 gigs of RAM, the works. So that means that whenever you're browsing the web or doing just general low maintenance stuff, your power supply fan is going to be off. That's great not only for noise reduction, but also for dust reduction. That means your power supply isn't even going to get dust caked into it, because unless you're actually playing a game, rendering a video, or doing something intensive like that, your fan isn't even going to be on. So this is by design. If you flick the switch, you know, don't be scared that your fan isn't on. But yeah, pretty cool, right? Okay, 2 more things. One is that this is a single rail power supply, so it's capable of providing up to 104 amps on a single rail. That is only 2 watts shy of the entire rated output of this power supply. So what that does mean is that you don't have to worry about which connector you're plugging what high draw device into. So, you know, short of accidentally plugging everything in your system into a single Molex connector and overheating this entire wire, which is very unlikely to happen. You don't have to worry about having, you know, 2 graphics cards on one rail and 1 graphics card on the other rail and accidentally triggering the overcurrent protection. You don't have to worry about that. You just go ahead and worry-free. You plug everything into everything, and it's all coming from a single 12-volt rail inside the power supply. So, thank you for checking out my unboxing of the XFX Pro 1250 watt solid link 80 plus gold power supply, and don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos. And honestly, if you're shopping for a power supply tomorrow, look for one with hybrid fan mode. So remember, the XFX 1050 watt 80 plus gold, the 1250 watt 80 plus gold, as well as the 1000 watt 80 plus platinum all have this feature, and it's very, very cool.